Hello, and welcome to a spooky Spongebob review. We have I Was a Teenage Gary and Scaredy Pants. I know it's not October, but I have to review all the episodes in the season, so let's just try and make it seem spooky. You know, a summerween, if you will. So, with all that said, you guys know how it works? Let the spooks begin with Scaredy Pants. Here we are at Scaredy Pants. Now don't be afraid, because this is actually a very good episode and a solid Halloween special. I really like all the dark textures to Bikini Bottom when it's shown at nighttime. All the thunder underwater somehow. The spiders, the costumes, everything just looks perfectly Halloween. And the plot is perfect. SpongeBob is sick and tired of being scared, so he tries to scare other people. Thus, hilarity and hijinks ensue, as well as the introduction of one of the greatest characters and one of the spookiest ghosts in cartoon history, the Flying Dutchman, who is introduced through a ghost story in the best way possible. The pros of this episode: it has terrifyingly good animation. It has a spookily great story. It has great writing that sends shivers down your spines in both laughter and fear. And best of all, the highlight, the twist ending. It is an ending that no one ever saw coming, and has been nightmare fuel to 90s kids everywhere. And with all that said, this episode for me gets a spooky final verdict of and a spine-chilling 8 out of 10. It is a great episode that belongs in the category of the classics, and one of the best Halloween specials in all of animation. Now let's take a look at its sister episode, another spooktacular spook fest, but in a completely different way. Not for what the episode is, but for what it started. Let's move on to the very first horror movie parody of many from the show. I Was a Teenage Gary. Welcome to one of the most hated episodes of SpongeBob SquarePants, and one of the most hated episodes in all of animation. And I have to say that this is horribly overhated and underrated as heck. Anyway, the plot is perfectly solid. Squidward neglects Gary and SpongeBob to come and when SpongeBob comes home, he finds his pet nearly dead on the ground. So he brings the doctor, who brings in the snail plasma, only to find out that Gary was just dehydrated. But Squidward stabs SpongeBob in the nose with the plasma, and thus he begins a slow and agonizing transition into a terrifying, monstrous sponge snail who torments Squidward and chases him around the house. And it ends with Squidward ending up with it in his nose as well, as he also becomes a snail. And the highlight of the episode, it ends on not a spooky note, but a hilarious note. Because of all the meowing, Patrick gets up from out of his rock just to throw a boot in Squidward's face. The perfect karmatic ending to an episode that was 100% his fault. Now, this episode is still really good. Or not, it's not great, but I still think it's good and way overhated. I think the plot is solid, the characters are in character, and the transformation scene is just that perfect amount of ridiculous and terrifying. And the highlight of the episode, like I said, is the boot to the face. That is hilarious. But this episode does not deserve to be up there with the worst in the show. I think this deserves a final verdict of a spooky 6 out of 10. It is a good episode. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise, or else they are lying to you to try and diverge you away from one of the greatest horror movie parodies ever made. And thus, more would come in the future. More that we're going to talk about in Spongebob months to come. Now with these 2 terrifying episodes reviewed, it's time for final thoughts and rankings. 2 spooky episodes put together into one spooky review. Happy Summerween, everybody. Second place is I Was a Teenage Gary. It's still a good episode, but does not at all match up to the number 1. The number 1 being Scaredy Pants, an amazing, great episode of SpongeBob, and one of the greatest Halloween specials ever made in animation, with a solid story, funny and perfect writing, the greatest introduction in the entire show, and one of the best twist endings in animation. If you like what you've seen, please hit the subscribe button. I hope you've enjoyed this surprise spooky episode of Spongebob Month. And until next time, happy Summerween. And until next time, my friends, have a spooktacular day.